We're going to learn two things today: how to create an open chord voicing for 90s jungle pads, and a new chord sequence that you can apply to your own compositions. Let's start by building the new voicing, and then we'll talk about it. We're going to make a major 7 chord on A flat, starting with the root, then our 3rd, then our 5th, then our major 7th. Now we're going to get the new voicing just by taking the 3rd and moving it up an octave into the top of the right hand. Now in this case, I'm playing the bottom 2 notes with my left and the top 2 with my right. The chord voicings that we used in our last video were built entirely on close voicings, or structures where all the notes in the chord are grouped within the span of an octave. So something like all between C and C, all between D and D. Now those can sometimes sound big and lush in a good way, which is what we were going with on the last couple of videos, but they can also be overly dense and boring, especially if we want to add variety or a more ethereal sound. So, instead of something like... In this case, we still have a 3rd between the middle 2 notes, but on either end we've opened it up to a 4th, or a 5th that is, and a 4th respectively. This chord sounds bigger in some ways because it covers more range, but also less congested at the same time from not having all those notes on top of one another. Let's take our new chord voicing and put it through a new progression. In the previous videos, we used progressions that were moving in a single direction, either ascending, with minor chords there, or descending. In both cases before restarting the sequence back at the beginning. Here, we're going to use an overall descending movement with a lift in the middle. We could think of this as a mirrored movement between pairs of chords because we're going to be going. Or we could think of it as a fall, rise, fall shape. We'll start on A flat major 7, and then we'll move down to E flat major 7, using the same intervals between all the notes. Root, 5th, 7th, 3rd. This is a little different from what we've done in the past, where we mostly use stepwise motion to create that clash from chords containing notes that are non-diatonic to one another, or not fitting in the same key with the previous chord. Here the D natural doesn't technically fit into A flat major because there's a D flat in the key of A flat, but the clash isn't as obvious because there is no D in the preceding A flat major 7th chord. So, sounds pretty smooth. However, our next chord, F major 7, clearly has that non-diatonic, non-functional jungle sound with the E natural going against the E flat we just played, and the A natural not matching the A flat from the starting chord. So... So we've gone down and up, and now it's time to move down again. Our next chord is this D flat major 7, which is a chord that is diatonic to our starting A flat chord, our key of A flat major, but not the E flat major and F major we just played, so we get that kind of crunchy, dreamy sound again. The keynote here is the A flat countering the A natural from the previous chord. From there, we go back to A flat major 7. This is a good lesson on how we can use dissonance strategically, sometimes using less of it to change the sound of various chord progressions even in jungle. In other words, not everything has to be stepwise, not everything has to be chromatic. Sometimes we can have chords that go pretty well together, as long as we have something in there to add a bit of that kind of dark crunch to it. We have our 4 main chords now: A flat, E flat major 7, F major 7, and D flat major 7. With non-functional music, the chord numerals don't matter as much, but we can call this a 1, 5, 6, 4 sequence, kind of like an atmospheric Y2K version of Don't Stop Believin'. Now, if we want to spice things up, we can use a variation of what we used in the previous major 7 chord video and add one more chord descending by a half step on every second loop. So now after this D flat major 7, we'll slide down half a bar early to C major 7, or the 3 chord relative to A flat. This has 2 effects. First, we get extra dissonance from having every note shift by a half step. And we get a more dissonant, ear-grabbing transition back to our A flat major chord now that that E flat is preceded by an E natural. But we still get a strangely smooth transition because it's paired with the C and the G from the C major chord, carrying over in a higher octave to the A flat major 7 chord. Here's the whole sequence on the beat. And now let's hear it with half a beat anticipation on the chords in the 2nd and 4th bars. So a bit of a syncopated push. That was our lesson on open major 7th voicings. I hope you learned something from it. If you want to support what I do, please like, subscribe, and comment, and go check out my Patreon in the description below. If you want to learn about a wider variety of music, please also check out my new 2nd channel, How Pop Music Works Live. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of someone else, and have a good day.